So the ingredients for our peanut butter toffee bark are very simple. We are going to be using some saltine crackers, a little bit of salt. We're going to use some butter. This is unsalted butter. We're also going to use some granulated sugar, peanut butter, chocolate. You can use any kind of chocolate you want. I'm a milk chocolate fan. And then on top, I'm going to be using Heath Bar toffee bits, but you can use peanuts. You can use any nuts that you like. It's up to you. And these are our ingredients. So the most important thing when baking anything, even a recipe as simple as this one, is prepping and making sure we have everything measured out in advance. So we are going to be using a cup of unsalted butter. I have cut it into pieces, which makes it easier to melt. I'm going to add that to this pot, and we're going to also add the granulated sugar. And lastly, we're going to add in a half a teaspoon of salt. We're just going to put that to the side. We'll get back to that in a minute or two. Okay, next up, we have measured out 1 cup of peanut butter. That's going to be for later, so I'm just going to put that to the side as well. We also have 12 ounces of chocolate. I'm going to be using my Cuisinart, but you can also just finely chop this by hand, whichever is easiest for you. If you have a Cuisinart though, use it. I'll show you how I use mine in a few minutes. And then we have our saltines, which you'll know are on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. So the parchment paper is very important so that we're easy to cut these bars once they're ready. And we're going to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to speed this up, but you'll see I'm doing a single layer of the saltines onto the parchment paper so it is completely covered. Okay, so as you can see, we have a fully lined tray of saltine crackers now. You want to put the salt side face up, and if you notice, I also kind of put them in the same order to just make sure that they fit snugly on the baking tray. We're going to set this aside and move on. So next up is our chocolate. I'm going to pull out my Cuisinart and we're going to get this chopped up without my hands. So I'm going to speed this up again. I'd like to break up the chocolate into slightly smaller pieces than the little bars so we get an even chop, and then we're going to go ahead and pulse away. All right, we're now fully prepped. We have our sheet pan ready with our saltine crackers. We have our chopped chocolate, we have our measured out peanut butter, and we have the ingredients to make our actual toffee. So next up, we're going to head over to the stove and get this toffee going. All right, while we're preparing our toffee, we're going to have our oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And then 2 tools we're going to be using to make the toffee is a spatula, rubber spatula, and I'm also going to be using a digital thermometer that I'll be using to temp the toffee to make sure that it's ready to go. Let's get started. I'm going to speed this up again because it's pretty boring to watch me just stirring for quite some time. But basically we want to melt the sugar and the butter together, and then we're going to just stir until it gets to 285 degrees Fahrenheit. You'll see me checking multiple times throughout the process. And it's really important to also stir in a single direction throughout the time that you're making the toffee. And here's where we want to get to, 285. So I'm going to go ahead and spread now the warm, or I should say hot, toffee directly on top of the saltines. This is going to take a little bit of time, but you want to work kind of fast because your toffee is setting while you're doing this. So you'll see me just using a rubber spatula and spreading this as far to the edges as I possibly can. We are going to let this cool for about 5 minutes, and while that's going on, I'm going to just heat up the peanut butter a little bit, about 5 to 10 seconds, just to get it soft enough to dap on top of the toffee. And now I'm going to dollop the warmed up peanut butter all over the toffee, and we're going to use an offset spatula to spread that fully to the edges of the pan. I highly recommend everyone get an offset spatula in their kitchen arsenal. It is so versatile, makes spreading things really easy, and is also great for using on frosting cakes. So we're going to finish up with the peanut butter and make sure we get it all around. I like to just spin the tray rather than manipulating my hand in weird positions. So move the tray around. Next up, we're going to go ahead and get our chopped chocolate right on top of the peanut butter. And this is the fun part. If you have kids, or if you are a kid and you're baking this, this is a great time for you to get involved. You'll see I'm using gloves because I really don't like melted chocolate on my hand, and you'd be shocked at how quickly chocolate melts in your hand because of the warmth. So just go ahead and fill the entire surface with the chopped chocolate. Again, this is the fun part of the recipe. You get to just throw chocolate around and with wild abandon. And 12 ounces is a good amount for this. So you don't need to be shy, and you want to make sure that you cover every inch of the pan itself. Let's go ahead and finish that up. I think this is looking a little boring, so let's go ahead and speed up this process and get to the end. All right, we're going to go ahead and pop the entire tray into the oven, and we're going to just have it in there for about 5 minutes. We're just melting the chocolate. Okay, our 5 minutes are up, and now we are going to use an offset spatula, the one I've been using throughout this recipe, to just spread out the chocolate with the peanut butter. So I'm spreading out the chocolate here, which goes pretty quickly because it is melted, and also the most fun part of making the bark. And then you'll notice I'm going to do a little shake of the pan to just get everything nice and smooth, and a slight tap to get out any air bubbles. Finally, I'm going to take the Heath bar bits and I'm going to put them right on top of this melted chocolate. So I only used about half of the bag of the Heath bar toffee bits. And again, here you can use pretzel bites, bits, you can use peanuts, you can use almonds, you can use any kind of topping that you think would taste good or that you'd like to have with this. I've seen people even use crushed up additional saltine crackers. I've seen them use Honey Nut Cheerios. So the sky's the limit. Often I'll just look and see what I have in the kitchen, and I'll use that for this part of the recipe. All right, our full bar is done, but of course now it needs to set. We're gonna put this in the refrigerator, and it takes about 15 minutes to set, and then we'll be back to cut this up and take a bite.